So what's up, everybody? We are here with the Zach Cox. He's a live sound engineer, and yeah, we're gonna be going over some questions today with basically how to help, as a band when you go live, how to make your stuff sound a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump on in over here and go ahead and introduce him. What's up, Zach?
What's up? How's it going?
Not too bad, my guy. How you been?
Doing well. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Hell yeah. All right. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Like, what all you do.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. As Brian just said, I am Zach Cox. I've been in the music industry for about 7 years now. I've played and toured with multiple bands. I've worked for AV companies as well as recording studios. I recently was like a music director at a school rock. I taught music and kind of oversaw all the curriculum for all the programs that we offered.
Oh, nice.
And I guess like during all of that, like throughout all of that, I've freelanced kind of my own gigs for live sound as well as like studio work.
Oh, word.
So I've kind of been all around.
Yeah, no, I've gotten the pleasure to work with you in the studio. Now, you are hands down one of the best guitarists I've ever got to work with.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
For sure. So, and I guess I kind of have a little bit of an insight on this, but I mean, before we get started, as far as talking about the live sound, I'm just kind of curious, what have you guys been doing as far as like with COVID? Has that changed the dynamic being in a band or anything, or not?
Not really, because fortunately enough, I actually live with Kyle, my bandmate.
Oh,
so we actually were in quarantine together. So it didn't really, change our work ethic, that dynamic. Because
for sure.
The whole time.
Yeah, if anything, it probably just made it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Word. All right, so I guess, yeah, let's just jump into it. So we had talked a little bit about what we wanted to go over. As far as the importance of live sound, what's your opinion on live sound? I mean, how do you go about, setting up your band stuff and all that?
Well, I think the importance of live sound, it's no matter how good your songs are, how well you think you write your tunes, if they don't sound good, if you don't sound, cohesive as a band, nobody's going to experience those songs the way you want them to. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's such a crucial part to, performing your music, right? If that's something that you want to do, where you're like, okay, I'm in a band, I've wrote music with, this other person or this group of people, and I want to, perform this, with 4 other people, then, it's such a crucial part.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, there's nothing worse than seeing a band and like hearing them on record and be like, oh my God, this is awesome. You go see them live and it's just like it's just a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And I can't tell you, man, how many, like I've worked with a lot of musicians where the whole live sound thing and performing was kind of just like a means to an end. It was like something you were supposed to do. And for me personally, that's like one of the greatest parts about being a musician is being able to share that with other people,
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's,
so yeah,
it's like, yeah, and that's like going back on COVID, like that's been the worst part about it is like you get used to going out doing shows, having fun, and then you realize like, crap, I'm stuck in my room for, it's been what, 6-7 months at this point.
Dude, it's way too long. Time is just like so different nowadays. It's like last week was yesterday, and it's just.
Oh yeah, dude. Wild. And like I thought it was bad whenever I made the transition from like I worked at like a restaurant and then I jumped into audio production. And like people would ask me like, "Yo, what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow?" And I'd be like, I don't even know what day of the week it is." And it's like now it's like I don't even know what month it is.
Yeah, somebody said something about Thanksgiving the other day and I was like, "Holy hell, like that's soon." Like it feels like it was just March.
Right. So as far as like y'all's live setup and whenever you guys do play live, what do you recommend for bands when they're getting started out?
So starting out, I think the first steps that are really important is kind of figuring out your stage plot, kind of how you want to set up your band on a stage. Granted, every venue has kind of a different layout, but if you have a rough outline, I think that kind of expedites the whole process, because that leads into this next thing. Being able to break down and like load in, set up fairly quickly is really important, because if you can set up really quick, then that gives you more time to kind of do your rough sound check and communicate with the engineer behind the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can't tell you how many times where I've been playing a gig and the band before us took forever to get off the stage. It happens sometimes, but
oh dude, yes, and people go over sound or over time all the time. It's so annoying.
So you're setting up, and then you get done, and it's like, okay, you were supposed to start 3 minutes ago. I'll just mix you as you go. So if you can kind of expedite that process and get really good at setting up and breaking down, then it's just going to give you more time to relax and kind of fine tune.
For sure. And I feel like one thing. Yeah, one thing I would like to add to that even is, like, as far as a drummer, you don't have to wait till you get up on stage to start setting everything up. Like, there's a lot of preset you can do where, put your cymbals on, get your stuff set up, get, like, find a place off the side of the stage and get your stuff as ready to go as you possibly can. Like, obviously you probably can't put the pedals on because, you have to move the kick drum, but like, get all your cymbals up to the right height that you normally play at. When you're tearing down, don't just shrink them down to the smallest size possible. Like, leave them as close to how they're actually going to be live as you can. That way, then when you get to the venue, you don't have to spend 45 minutes just getting everything perfect. Like, I feel like a lot of people, they get like that jitteriness when they get to the venue, and they're like, oh God, we gotta move, and it's 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, slow down. And like, if you've practiced tearing down, if you practiced all that stuff, if your band is conscious about it, then you're gonna have a way better time going live. Like,
yeah, agreed. And as far as drummers go, because I've played a couple shows behind the kit. I'm more of a guitar player, but
same.
For the drummers that I've worked with, if the drummer that I'm playing with, stages their drums before we actually get on, I'm relatively quick with my setup. I've got either a combo, a pedal board, and a guitar, or a cab and a little amp, and it takes me not a lot of time to set that up. So if you have your drums staged, like, I'm more than happy to help you bring up your ride cymbal, your floor tom, if it's already set up.
Yeah, because and that kind of goes back, like, there's like, everyone always talks about how the drummer has the longest like load in time and shit like that, and then the vocalist never wants to help. But it's like, if you communicate with your band, what I've found is 9 times out of 10, vocalists and everybody else, like, that's a stereotype that might have existed back in the 80s, but people are still human beings. They still want to help you out. Like, you just have to communicate and not expect them to do everything for you.
Yeah. Communication. Ooh, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, because it's like, if you're gonna, communication is number one with your band is absolutely important. You have to, you practice like you play. And that, I mean, one thing that we've been doing lately is, because this is actually something we've been really focusing on, is I want to make sure that, when we get on stage, we can get everything loaded up in a 5-minute window. Like, ideally, between the time that band is completely cleared off stage and we are walking on for the first time, I want all of our stuff set up entirely ready to go for sound check in 5 minutes. And it's like, unless you practice that, you're probably not going to hit those times. Like, just usually it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and that goes back to the communication, like, to get that done, you got to expedite, divide and conquer.
Yep. And, one of the things that I see with drummers, and I'm going to keep talking about drummers. Obviously, I play drums for my band. And it's like, this is just, I watch this stuff at shows, and it's like, dude, you don't have to play a Neil Peart sized kit to sound good live. Like, you don't have to have 5,000 cymbals that you're probably not going to use for half of your music. And guitarists with 1,000, I guess with pedal boards, it's a little bit easier because that stuff's preset. Like, you know what you're doing. You run in, plug one cable in, you're ready to go. But
yeah,
With God, drummers are horrible about it.
the two 412s, you know, when you're playing a
Yeah.
little, you know, club.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
when the I had a guitarist. I had a guitarist, and he is an amazing guitarist. Like, first off, this dude's probably one of the cleanest guitarists that I've ever worked with. But we used to play, and I played guitar with him. But we would play, and I had a half stack set up, and I was like, all right, cool, yeah, this is dope. And he like shows up to one of our shows, and he had a full stack. I was like, I have never seen somebody play with this live. And we're like in like a small bar. Like, it was like, I think we were like 15, 16. So like we were at like, it was like a teen bar. And it was just like, dude, you don't need that much stuff. And since then he's like trimmed it down, but it was like, yeah, looking back as kids, like I was like, oh God. We were doing that shit just to look cool and not necessarily sound the best.
Exactly, and that's kind of something else I wanted to talk about. You know, you touched on it with the whole Neil Peart setup, you know, in the full stack.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, especially whenever I was younger, I was in a lot of metal bands, and that was the cool thing to do, you know, play a half stack, you know, or full stack with an amp that's, you know, 100, 120, 150 watts.
Yeah, exactly.
Just ridiculous, you know. And you know, I used to play venues, and the sound guy would just be like, oh yeah, can you turn it down, can you turn it down, can you turn it down, to the point where the amp wasn't even working. You know, I was on like 1, and it just destroyed my guitar tone.
Yep.
So you know, sometimes the coolest thing isn't always the thing that's going to sound the best. And so now I use like a little combo, and technology has advanced so much that, you know, I literally could just plug a pedal into you know, the PA and sound amazing.
Oh yeah, no, that's with Mirror Lake. That's what we're eventually building towards. Is I want to run an Axe FX like the new the Axe 3. Ideally, with an Axe FX 3, dude, you can run 2 guitars and a bass all through one unit. You have stereo tones that are running, you know, so it's not like it's just all mixed down into one amp. You have stereo tones for your guitars. You have your bass tone coming through. It's perfect. Like you can get all of your tones in one unit. It's like setup time for that is nothing. You literally roll a box out on stage and say, "Here, sound guy, plug in," and that's it. Like there's no miking up anything, and it doesn't matter how loud you are.
Yeah, it really gives the front of house engineer, you know, the guy running the sound, a lot of, you know, control to get y'all's sound dialed in. But if you have plans to tour, getting that stuff, you know, and getting used to how that works, and integrating that into your kind of live sound setup, dude, that would make touring a breeze. You know,
dude, because what it boils down to is you get more room for merch, for everything else. Like, space is limited. You don't want to bring a full stack that takes up half. Like, if you have 2 guitars with full stacks, imagine that, and a Neil Peart drum kit. Where do you put anything else in the trailer?
It's a good question. Somebody's sleeping on the floor, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Now, and you kind of touched on this. I want to kind of go back a little bit, like stage plots. I had never used anything like that until my band started working with our manager nowadays, and he was like, "Hey guys, listen, we got to build a tour rider for us to send these venues before we go, so they know what we're bringing and what to expect." Because obviously, if your band uses an Axe FX and 3 other bands you're on tour with don't, then the sound guy needs to understand that.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of cool. Like, that's such a great concept that I, for some reason, in my stupidity, never thought of. But yeah, having a plot, like dude, you can draw it out and scan it, so you have a digital version of it. But just having some kind of plot is so important, and like I want to stress that, I guess.
Yeah, and it does wonders for your relationship with the sound guy. If you've got a stage plot, even if it's just a very rudimentary one, you can hand it to the sound guy, you know, day of the gig, like at load-in, and he's going to view you and your band as, you know, more professional, and honestly going to try and do right by you. Because I can't tell you how many times myself working as a sound guy, I just see these, you know, inexperienced, you know, musicians come in, and it's just, they cause more trouble than, you know, just because they don't know any better. Yeah,
it's just, it's basic stuff that if you learned it beforehand, it would have taken you 5 minutes to prep that, and it'd have made your whole experience that much nicer, that much smoother. Because Yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, dude, just tip the sound guy. And it's like, no, that is a great idea. Don't ever shy away from tipping your sound guy. But at the same time, like, make his life easy. Don't just be like, here's the money, we fuck. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Learn his name and call him by his name, not guy
yeah,
or gal. You know?
Exactly. John, my manager, he wanted me to throw this caveat in there, like, don't bum a cigarette off the sound guy.
Oh, no.
I don't know why. I was like, apparently that was something that, like, I guess he was running sound for a while, and that was just something that annoyed it annoyed the crap out of him. This is a family show, not gonna. but yeah, and like just being prepared and the things you can do to be prepared. I feel like a stage plot and knowing how to set your band up fast, like those are two great points that I don't feel like anyone ever talks about. Like, you always get these, these ads on YouTube about how to be a signed band or how to get your band, millions of plays on Spotify. It's like, that's all cool, but none of that shit matters when you go live. Like, like I said, it's a dumpster fire. And I don't know. Thank you for bringing stuff like this up. Like, we talked about this the other day, and I was just like, this is such a great concept that.
Yeah, I think for like one more thing on the stage plots.
Yeah.
If you've got anything like an acoustic guitar, or if you're just running kind of a modeler, or a keyboard or backtracks, like giving that stage plot to the sound guy, not only does it make you look more professional, but then they're going to have everything prepped for you, ready to go. So you're going to have more time to communicate with the sound guy and be like, hey, can I get a little more of this? Can I get a little bit of less of that?
Yeah.
So it just it makes the whole process a lot smoother.
Yeah. Now we've talked about the importance of one, but as far as whenever you're talking about a stage plot, I know what my band has for ours, and I can go into detail there. But I'm curious, from a live sound engineer's perspective, what are you looking for on a sound plot or a stage plot? Excuse me.
For me, I really just want to know how many like what instruments they're going to be. And then how, roughly they're going to be laid out on the stage. Yeah. And so through that, I can see, this, keyboard or these two keyboards are going to need DI boxes, and they're going to be on this side of the stage. So I go ahead and prep that before they get on. If they run an acoustic guitar too, well, there you go. How many vocalists are there? Instead of just kind of waiting until people get up on stage and be like, oh yeah, we've got 3 vocalists. We need 2 extra mics, So really for me, it's just kind of seeing what instrumentation is going to be on stage and where they're at, so I can, set up accordingly for them.
For sure. And differentiating between acoustic guitar and electric is kind of important in my opinion, because I guess venue wise, they would know if they're going to mic it or if they're just going to run it electric. At least on a stage plot, make sure that they understand, hey, I have an acoustic guitar. It is not an acoustic electric. Like, specify little things like that. And like, the more information, the better.
Yeah, I think most bands now, just because of the technology, most of them have like acoustic electrics. I've rarely run into, I've got acoustic but no mic. Rarely do I. I think I've ran into that like twice.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
I can imagine though, it can be a headache though, and it's something that you'd want to know beforehand.
Yes. Because then you're scrambling trying to find a mic. Yep.
Also, and I can think of like one band, so this is kind of a niche thing, but if your drummer is a singer, please specify that. Like, hey, look, put a mic back here. Don't just say, oh, we need 3 mics.
Yeah. And, we were saying acoustic electric guitar. If you're, usually on a stage plot, you see like electric guitar amp and kind of where the player is going to stand. But if you're running like a modeler or anything like that you need to plug straight into the PA, specify that as well. Like that helps so much.
So whether they're going to need an XLR cable or a microphone on your cab, then like just list out your gear and make sure you understand what basically the sound guy needs to know what's going to be on stage before you get on stage.
Yep.
For sure. And it's funny with ours, we even like drew, like I went into like the Photoshop, I made like a real shitty like map of the stage for like how we set up. It's like the template that we got was cool because I got to see it from a little bit different perspective. It was a stage plot for like a touring comedy act or a touring. Yeah, they were like a comedy act, but they did like some like acoustic guitar parts and stuff. So seeing it from that perspective, I knew it was like for them, they were like, oh yeah, we have a projector. We have, we need a table set up here. We need this. And if your band uses props, then it's okay to request stuff like that. Like, don't demand it, but you can request things like that. Like if if you've got a song where you're like, hey, look, maybe this is a little bit more chill, a little bit more mellow song. It's okay to say, hey, can we get a bar stool and make sure it's just put off to the side of the stage so that when we do this song, I'm going to pick up an acoustic guitar and I'm going to set that up on stage and kind of sing in the mic. Whatever you're doing, it's okay to request things from the bar that's not necessarily like instruments. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're going to get it. That's relative to each bar. But
yeah, and I was going to kind of touch on that. Whenever you do book a gig and you're going to go perform, if you could find out the back line and kind of what equipment they have there, the sooner the better, because I've had some bands, contact me beforehand, like not even the day of the show, like days before.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll have to tell them, be like, oh yeah, we don't have that, we don't have that many mics. We're not capable of doing that. And so it gives them a little more power if they want to run things a certain way that they can, they got time to kind of gather that stuff and bring it, because I'm more than happy to set it up and get you going. But if we don't have it, the venue I'm working at, we don't have it,
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it gives you as a band time to prep. Like, hey, look, we might be booking out a 6-show run. That this one venue does not have a projector for us to run like a slideshow on behind us. Then we need to know that in advance.
Yeah.
So, it's all just about making communication that much smoother, that much better. And I feel like that's turning into the moral of this whole story is like, how to sound good, communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that fixes a lot of problems.
Oh, hell yeah. So, next, I guess the next thing, I've noticed this in studio. I'm curious how this translates live. I will get a guitarist in and they will set up their tone like when they're in their room or in their house, and like they make it sound good by themselves. However, when I have to record it, it's like, yeah, that sounds badass, but when you put a mic up to it, it's all low end. So like, do you ever run into that issue as well? Like, it's like, look, you need to shape your tone like for the song, not necessarily for the instrument by itself.
Yeah, most definitely. Like it or not, you're a band. You're not just a guitar player, or a drummer. So whenever you're going to kind of play as a band, you need to have that mindset. We have to sound good together, not individually. And then just kind of hope that if we put it all together, it's going to sound good.
For
it's
sure.
like, chocolate's good, beef's good. Let's put them together.
Never put those together.
Should be good. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, I'm sure there's some recipes out there that figured out a way, but it's like, nah, fam.
Yeah.
That's not for me.
So you definitely have to kind of keep the whole band, in mind. And I think for me as a live sound guy, I can't tell you how many times I'll watch a band go on and I'll just be like, oh yeah, they really honed in practice,
Yeah.
Like off stage in practice, in rehearsal, they're very conscious of kind of how these, guitar tones, bass tones, the level of the vocals, how everything kind of blends. And so when they get to the gig, sometimes they'll come up to me and tell me, or sometimes they won't, but the way they dial in everything on stage, it just sounds so good. It's like, it's meant to be.
You see it a lot. Yeah, you
forced.
see it a lot more and a lot more in professional bands. Like touring bands, they take that extra time. And sometimes it means if you don't have the equipment like in practice to really dial it in, like it's okay. There are some really small bars. Like I know in Houston we have the White Swan, and it's a smaller bar, and you can literally go talk to them and rent out the bar for an evening. It's like, dude, dial in your sound there. Like just have somebody stand in the back, and like you don't have to. You have to do much, like or go to a rehearsal space. I guess it's a better place, but somewhere with the PA, somewhere with all that stuff for you to really, like, think about your live performance. Like, understand your guitars sound great by themselves. The moment you add a bass into it, then it just turns into a muddy mess. And shape every bit of your tone to recreate that experience that you got in studio. I guess people like me, I'm doing the studio side, so I know it's a little bit easier for me to talk or to stress that. But think about your instrument as a whole. With drums, they're kind of universal, but like you would never run like a marching snare in an indie. I guess you could run it in an indie band, but you get what I'm saying. Like there are certain instruments that you would not bring to a metal show. And think about those things. Like if you want to have that Slipknot piccolo kind of snare, like that old school Slipknot snare, then cool, run that. But don't be mad when you have that and you're going for a Chango style, like just fop hand cannon snare, and you hit it and it goes ding. Like, don't be surprised. Like, gear your sound for your live experience, and gear it for your listener, not necessarily for what you hear whenever you're playing by yourself. Understand and trust the process that, hey, when this shit comes together as a whole, you're actually gonna make it, like, it's really gonna come together. Like, I see guitarists, they're either way too bright or way too dark when we start out with a tone, and when we end, what's funny is 9 times out of 10 we end and they're like, yo, that actually sounds better than it did before. It's like, because you're trying to do too many things with one instrument that's only designed to fill a specific role in the sound spectrum.
Yeah, I can't tell you, how many times, like, whenever I was playing, in more of my metal projects, I ran my gain so high. And I think it was whenever I first started getting into recording, recording myself, I noticed that, just lowering the gain and backing that off, does wonders for the mix.
I had to learn that.
Great by itself,
with gain, I learned that with saturation plugins in mixing, is you'll run like a slate saturation, like or a console at saturation. And it's like on one channel, you'll barely hear it. But when you have 64 channels doing that same, just a fraction of a saturation, like fraction of a saturation, yeah, that's a term. No, that fraction of a turn, like, dude, it compounds by the end of it. And it's like, wow, this sounds huge. But if you would ran just any more, then by the time it stacks 64 times, then, well, now you have a distorted mess. And guitars are the same way, because you have 2 guitarists on stage typically. So it's like, back your gain off, because when your gain works with the other guitarist's gain, and you're playing the same rhythm part, it's going to sound beefier and more dramatic than it actually is. If you've got a good live sound engineer, which hopefully they've got you or somebody of that.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's always hit or miss, depending on the venue, you might get a sound guy who's, inexperienced and doing his best to learn and do right by you. Mm-hmm. And the other times, you walk in there and he's just like, he turns a couple knobs, and it's just like the heavens part.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, and you can always tell, but it's just like, oh my god, it's such a relief when you find those guys. A lot of bands I've seen, they'll tour with their own live sound guys, but the majority of bands, I feel like, don't ever get to that point. So it's good to know how to get your stuff sounding right. I'm curious to know, with setting up your monitor mix, how long do you feel like is an appropriate amount of time? Like, I want to see what your response on that is.
Okay, so with setting up your monitor mix, I like to have a point person. Okay, so I like to have, if I'm in a 4-piece or 5-piece, I like to delegate one person to be that point of contact between us, the band, and the sound guy, right? Mm-hmm. Or as a sound guy, I like to talk to one person. I don't need,
absolutely,
5 guys kind of yelling at me, or vice versa.
Yep.
But if you have one person kind of doing all the speaking, and we just kind of run through what stage right needs, center, stage left, I think it should be about 5, a couple minutes really.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is because it's like, I've had sound guys that they'll start rushing you after 60 seconds. I've had sound guys that just don't give a damn and fall asleep at the console. so it's kind of a different experience every time. When I talked to a friend of mine who he's a touring artist, and he told me, he was like, yo, you take as long as you fucking need. And I'm going to bleep that later. No, he's like, you take as long as you need, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're not happy with what you're given, if you're not comfortable with it, then you're not gonna perform as well as you could. So it's like, maybe you should take the time and actually get your mix right. And if you're a guitarist and you need vocals, like if vocals are what keep you in sync with the song, or if it's the kick and snare combo, like make sure that in your monitor you've got exactly what you need, because at the end of the day, it's not the sound guy that's going to look like a fool if you guys play like crap. It's you. So maybe that goes against sound guys, maybe that'll piss some guys off, but my logic is, nah, let's get this to where, like, if I'm going on stage, then I want my stuff to sound exactly how I need it to. And I'm willing to take that extra couple minutes, and maybe if worst case scenarios, we'll trim our set if we're just dramatically behind time.
Yeah.
Like I would rather play 4 songs instead of 5, but play 4 songs really well than 5 songs and never get anybody back from that crowd. And granted, it's on the band for taking so long. Typically, now sometimes the sound guy sucks. Whatever. There's always differentiating circumstances. But the most important fact is, don't rush your setup because you're on a time crunch. Like, do all the things that we talked about before to get your band the most amount of time possible. But if something goes wrong, don't worry about it. Take the extra, take a breath, take the time, because I've made that mistake and I've rushed sound check. I didn't have enough click in my headphones when, we were playing. We've got the strings and stuff in the backtracks, and it sounded horrible because I could not stay on time. I couldn't hear my click. And it was as simple as all I had to do was, have the sound guy turn one knob. But because I was rushing, I didn't take that time, and it ruined our whole show.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. The hardest part is learning what you need to play your best. It's one of those things you don't really know until you know.
Yeah.
But being conscious of it and knowing what helps you play the best, perform the songs, like, if vocals are your main cue, or if drums are, depending on kind of what genre, the band, how the songs are, you really kind of need to learn what you need to perform your best, right? So that way you're not up on stage playing and you feel detached from the rest of the band, because what you're hearing through your monitor is completely different than, say, what you heard in practice, which was like a 8x5 room.
Yeah, exactly. And like, in a room like that, you're gonna hear all drums.
Exactly.
And if that's what you got used to hearing, then it's okay to ask for all drums. Like, whatever cues you in, whatever makes you comfortable as a musician. I know plenty of people that they use different things to identify where they're at in a song. Make damn sure that whenever you've got your mix, that factor is the number one thing that you're hearing in your mix. Like, and it's probably good to hear yourself too, because oh my God, if you go out of key or if you go out of tune as a guitarist. Quick story on that one. We played a show one time and I had somebody throw a tuner at me when I was live on stage. It was like my second or third show live, and like, this is why I hate Austin. No, I'm kidding. I don't hate Austin. But no, like I was playing guitar and I didn't realize that. I think it was a G string.
Always the G string.
Always the G string, and it went out. It was so bad. My chords sounded terrible, and I couldn't really hear myself live. So it was like I didn't catch it as well as I should have. I could tell something was off, but I didn't realize it was that off. I actually got to watch the footage back afterwards, and I was like, oh my God. And I got hit in the head with the tuner. Like, some dude, I guess it must have been in a band. I never gave him back his tuner. I said, screw that, man. Put that shit in my pocket. I kept moving. Well, you're going to hit me with the tuner. You're not getting your stuff back, dude.
You hurt my head. You hurt my heart. I'm keeping this.
It's like, you shattered my heart. Like, no, man.
Yeah, dude. What's funny is I actually, personally, I hate hearing too much of myself.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm way louder than the rest of the band, even though I know it's just a monitor mix. front of house probably sounds amazing, but it messes up the way I perform the songs.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, there's too much of me. I'm hearing way too much. I like start to play more timidly, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I've actually kind of been like, hey, I need just a little bit of me in the monitor, you know?
For sure. Yeah, because I can imagine, you know, as a guitarist, you know, the varying intensities of, especially the kind of music that you play, like, you're gonna want to, you got to have that finesse, and it's like, if you're too loud in the mix, then you might not have the aggression that you need for a rhythm part, or, you know, the finesse of a lead.
Yep.
You know, I can totally see that's important. For me, it's funny. I went and like with drums, I just started actually, because I run like a backtrack with like I have my own little mixer in the back now, and I wasn't actually hearing anybody else in the band. Like, my live setup is literally just a click on one ear and the tracks on the other. And I taught myself how to play to that. My logic was, look, I don't need you guys. Y'all can completely screw this up. As long as I have the songs memorized, then you have your foundation, which as a drummer, I felt like was the most important thing. But recently I started attaching a mic to that mixer and just kind of setting it under my drums so I could start hearing stuff on stage. And it's amazing how much better you play because of that. Like,
yeah, because you're not in a vacuum. That's what
yes.
that's why, you know, getting your monitor mix is so crucial, because nobody wants to play in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. Word. So, no, that definitely, that kind of, that I feel like of all the points that we went over, that is probably the most important one, is making sure your mix is right live. But as far as, you know, overall, you need to have that communication with your venue when you're playing shows. Don't, and this is side advice, but don't book 1,000 shows locally. Like, don't book, you know, 15 shows in Houston if you live in Houston, all within a course of a month, because it's sidetracking. But
it ruins, your
it ruins a lot of things. It ruins your pool, but you're not going to be able to communicate, and you're not going to be able to, if you start actually doing this stuff, you start actually trying to organize like your band's stage presence and stage, you know, setup. Good luck staying in touch with that many people in one city. Like, no, it's not happening. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry. But yeah,
I mean, use your, you know, your live sound opportunities, you know, choose them wisely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think view them as networking too.
Thank you. Yes. And now I can return my point back on track because of what you said. No, it's like,
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. No, I gotta have somebody balance me. I'm way too talkative. No, the thing is, like, you want to, ideally you shouldn't be playing shows in the same place, you know, more than once every 30 to 60 days, specifically local stuff. And so what that means is that you're only going to get 1 to 2 chances every 2 months, maybe. So capitalize on those experiences and make damn sure that when you do play, that for that 30 minutes, but when you go on stage to when you get off, that is the best experience you can possibly give to the people that are in the crowd, because that is the only way you're ever going to get them to come back. Like, you might have a really good reach on Spotify, but the moment word gets out that you sound like shit live, you're screwed. Like, you've automatically got a mark against you. And in an industry where there are so many people that are, as a listener, you have so many options of what to listen to. If I hear a review of, you know, some band that I've never heard of, but like someone's talking about them, like, oh, bro, did you hear about this band live show? Yeah, what about it? Now I'm interested. And then the next words are, oh, dude, it was a dumpster fire. I already have a negative, like, your first impression with me, no matter how good your marketing might have been, it's ruined. And it's like, bands need to understand that their live performances are so important because of word of mouth. Because it's like high school drama, dude. Like, that stuff spreads like wildfire. And it's like, if you sucked live one time, it doesn't matter how many times you played perfect. That one show will haunt you for the rest of your career. So do it right. Take the steps. Take the extra bit of time and properly plan it out. Like, I know that sounds over dramatic, and, you know, it happens. But the fact of the matter is that your live show is crucially important to you as a band. Because think about it. As a band, your main source of income, it sure as hell ain't Spotify income. Like, we've all seen the numbers on Spotify. Like, if you're doing well, great. You know, you can make money on Spotify. I'm not dogging them. But what I'm saying is your main source of income, typically as a local band, is going to be your shows playing shows and selling merch. Who wants to buy a shirt from a band that looks worse than the artwork, or that sounds worse than the artwork on their t-shirts? It's like, come on now. Like, get your stuff straight. Play right, play clean, and the best way to do that is practice. But the best way to deliver that experience to your audience is to make sure that your live sound is A1. Last little example, I was not a big fan of this band for a long time. I'd heard about them in high school, and I had never really given them the time of day. I never really checked them out. But they were on tour with We Came as Romans with Silverstein and Color Morale. This band, Chunk No Captain Chunk. Okay, I never really got into them before this, but I went and saw them live, and I mean, dude, these were guys that, relative to the other national acts on that show, their tones, their everything was so flawless. I was like, dude, I was jamming them for like the next month and a half, like nonstop. And it's like, you're not going to have that experience with your fans unless you take the time to really think about it. Like, image is important. Your performance, like your presence on stage is important, but don't ever overlook the importance of your actual sound live. Practice your songs, know what the hell you're doing, and make sure that it sounds good in the audience side of it.
Yeah, and I think, I hate saying it, but I feel like you're always going to have a bad show.
Oh yeah, 100%. Nobody's perfect, but if you, as a perfectionist, you need to strive for that. Like, you need to make sure that if your band has a flop show, you can at least look yourself in the mirror and understand, hey, look, we did everything we could. Accidents happen, gear malfunctions, stuff like that, a fan can forgive. But if you go on stage and your band starts playing one song and you start playing another, good luck explaining that to them.
Yeah.
Practice. Now, and I mean, if you guys go on and play the same song, like this, kind of tying it back to the live sound and how important it is, like, if you suck on a night, if you have a bad show and it's because your gear, that's one thing. You can fix that, get them next time. You know what I mean? Like, if you're two blows in the middle of a show, dude, I've never seen that. I don't know if that's a thing. But if something fails live, like if your guitar, I've seen guitarists do spins and they snap their headstock, whatever. If stuff like that goes down, that's lit. That's punk rock. You broke your gear live. It was an accident. People are gonna laugh about it, but it's not something that you need to worry about as far as ruining your image and ruining your reputation. But if you go on stage and your band is transitioning in the songs and it's tight as hell, except for you on the left side or right side guitarist, if that's what screws you up, if that's what screws up your band sound, it's no longer a gear thing. It can't be just pinned off on circumstantial events. When you go on stage, it doesn't matter if you're, I've had girlfriends in the past when I was in high school, and we were fighting beforehand. We went on stage, and like, it's not easy to let that stuff go when you go live. It doesn't matter. If you let outside drama influence your performance live, that crowd that came to show you or came to see you play your show, they don't care. Like, yeah. I'm sure they care about you as a person, or like they don't want to see you sad. But
you gotta
at
leave
the same
that
time,
stuff at the door.
Exactly, leave it at the door. Play your songs right, do your stuff, handle your business, and take the time and get in the headset and focus on getting your live sound as perfect as possible.
And that's one thing that I've noticed a lot of people don't want to do, and I understand it's not the greatest thing. It's not super appealing, but that's your work. If you're a musician. Yeah. And you're playing a show, like it or not, that's a job. That's your job. That's your work. Yep. You wouldn't, go into any other job and, act the way that I see some of these musicians act, on stage. It's like, you would never do that.
It's like, yeah, like you get on stage and you're completely just, obliterated. Maybe you had too much to drink at the bar. Maybe you smoked something in the parking lot. It doesn't matter. It's like, dude, like, if you're going to be a professional, you need to be a professional. And like that. Yeah, that sucks. Like people have to understand that this is a career, this is a job, this is a source of income for a lot of people in the world. And it's like, if you're not trying to be the absolute best that you possibly can, then you're screwed. Like, you're already getting outperformed and outdone by somebody who really does want it more than you.
Yep. Yeah.
And
for sure.
Taking those extra steps, getting your sound, planning for your live sound, and simple communication with the bar. It's like, dude, these are easy steps. Like, we can sit here and talk for hours about how important it is to actually do this stuff and like all the little stuff of being a musician. This is the absolute bare minimum basics of, hey, look, you guys practiced your stuff, assuming you did. When you get on stage, let's make sure that it doesn't get screwed up by somebody who's not in the band. I don't mean that in an offensive way, but I mean, it happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You know, and I think this comes with like a big kind of disclaimer. But I think, you know, if you start taking videos of your band playing shows, now granted, it's going to sound very different on a camera. I think there are things that you can take away watching those videos. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, reviewing game footage.
Like, whoa, the bass. Exactly. It's like watching footage.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the bass was way too loud. Be like, oh, the guitar on the left is way too quiet. You know, that snare just it's tuned too low. Little things like that, you know, like big strokes, I think you can get from those videos. So that's something to keep in mind, you know, with recording yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody has an iPhone nowadays, and those phones are great for recording live. Like, you can easily capture basically what the crowd heard with an iPhone.
Yep.
Like, just have a friend, have somebody who's cool with the band, have them sit in the back of the venue, back by the sound guy, record what they hear. And a lot of time you'll notice, like, you'll get so much more information than just the general big strokes of like, what, okay, look, this guitarist sounded terrible, like it was way too quiet or it was way too loud. You'll get performance things from that as well. So there's multiple benefits to that, but definitely self-analyzation is very important in being in a band, because you have to know what not to do next time. Like, nobody does things perfect the first time. It's your goal to do it perfect. It's not realistic to expect that every move will be perfectly flawless. But
yeah, and I think this is kind of going more in depth on the technical side of things, but I think if you really want to, you know, progress and be the best that you can, if you were to do your research and learn about, you know, audio kind of equipment like compressors, EQs, you know, time-based effects like reverb and delays, you can go into the gig and you can, you know, meet the sound guy, learn their name, you know, create that relationship right from the get-go. And then you can just talk to them like, you know, most of the time they're musicians. You can talk to them like a musician, you know, and just be like, hey, you know, the band, you know, we're going for this sound, maybe give them a reference. And if you know that stuff about, you know, compressors and EQs and effects, you can be like, hey, we like a lot of the high end rolled off of the vocals, and we liked it kind of, you know, verbed out. And just doing those little things, you know, watching YouTube videos and just kind of reading, you know, up on these things on the internet, you know, that sound guy is just gonna be like, oh, okay, you know what you want? That makes my job easier. Yeah. And you're going to sound better because of it.
Yeah. Take the time and do your homework. I've got plenty of videos that I'm going to be releasing to help people out with stuff like this, but do your homework and understand the basics of sound, and understand that, like, as a vocalist, do you enjoy a lot of reverb on your vocals? Do you enjoy a little bit of delay? How much compression do you typically enjoy? You may not be able to give a perfect example, but if you're like, hey, look, you know, I don't want to sound completely dry, just make sure that, you know, can you please make sure that we have, you know, reverb on the vocals? Like, that goes a long way for people's sound, and it kind of goes back to communication.
And this is a little bonus. I kind of talked about it, but if you can have a couple of references, you know, like popular bands that, you know, you enjoy the way they sound, and you give those to the sound guy, that does a lot.
Yeah, you know? Bands do that all the time in studio. I don't think I've ever heard of them doing it actually live. That's funny.
I mean, obviously it's going to sound different on the recordings, but just that vague reference, you know, Pantera and Metallica sound, different,
Mm-hmm.
and most sound guys, they're gonna know a lot of these bands, popular bands, and
Yeah.
they're gonna kind of get you in the ballpark of what you're going
Yeah,
for.
exactly. If you, yeah, and yeah, I mean, and it's the same way in studio. Bands come in, they're like, hey man, I really want to, when for our drums, we're really going for a Memphis Mayfire, Challenger kind of drum sound. Like, I don't get that a whole lot anymore, but that used to be a big thing. Is like people would come in and be like, hey dude, we really want to have that Chango kind of sound from our drums. Like we love that. That's what the vibe we're going for, and it works. It as a producer, as an engineer on that side, it's like, okay, cool. Now I'm not going for that specifically, but I at least have an idea of the vibe of what we're going for. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would have never thought about that. That's pretty solid advice.
Yeah,
Like-
and obviously, like you said, it's going to be different. But if I hear somebody say, something and be like, oh, okay, what I take away from that is, you like the guitars to have not a lot of mid range. I can do that,
For sure.
or it's like,
Yeah, you
okay,
want those scooped ass mids, yes.
yeah, it's like you like the vocals to be kind of in the mix, not on top of the mix.
Yeah.
Okay, that I can kind of get you closer to that point.
Yep. All right. Well, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it up. That about wraps up the amount of time that I have for today.
Nice.
Kind of a shorter stream. I'm sorry, guys, but Zach, dude, I really appreciate you, coming out and entertaining everybody. Like, it's valuable information, and like, I don't feel like people ever really take the time to think about it. So it's cool to get to talk about things like this.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I agree. A lot of people, this kind of gets put on the back burner, and I think once you give it some attention, it helps more than you really know.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, guys, if you guys are in the chat or if you're on the YouTube side of things, Zach has we've got his Instagram and Twitter links on the screen, but I will also be links in the description below. Be sure to go follow him. Zach's got a lot of cool stuff that he works on. We've got to work on a lot of it in Bravery Sound. But are you guys like, y'all have anything lined up? Any like coming soon, or I mean, y'all have any shows lined up? Or
Yeah, so we actually have a show in December. So if you go ahead and follow me, I'll be posting about that stuff. And I think we have another show in January as well. So got a couple gigs coming out. Got new music that I've been working on. So yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, yeah, be sure to follow Zach. And any questions you guys might have, tweet at him. I know he loves Twitter.
Yeah.
Shoot him a tweet and just say what's up. And if you've got questions, he's definitely your guy to go to for live engineer sound questions. Obviously, you guys are welcome to ask me as well. But real quick, I want to pull up this link right here. We also have the Discord for Musicians Resource. Right now, it's still called Bravery Sound, but it will be changing pretty soon. It's basically a community that I've created that I want people to be able to ask each other questions. Zach, I'd love it if you'd hop in there sometime. But
yeah, of course, man. I teamwork makes the dream work.
Hell yeah.
And I'm more than happy to be part of it.
Awesome. I'm gonna make this a never expiring link. So guys, if you guys want to save this, if you've got people that you think that it would be if it'd be beneficial to, like if you've got, if you have that garage band down the street from you that think you're just like, oh my god, your guys' sound sucks so bad, please by all means show them this video and pretend that it wasn't because of this that you showed them. But anyways, guys, the link to the Discord is in the chat as well. And then I will have that in the YouTube videos as well, like the description down below. And again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate you. I'm going to bleep that.
Of course, man. Thank you, everybody who tuned in and watched.
All right, guys. Well, again, have a great night. And catch y'all next time.
Peace. Later, y'all.